Hello everyone, this is Coach Oliver from Dubai Chancellor. Today we will be discussing three important words used in chess. And what are those? It's check, checkmate, and stalemate. All right, to start off, look at on your screen, and we have this first position. All right, if you look at the position carefully, the rook on f5 is checking the king on c5. And what is a check, by the way? A check is a move when a piece is attacking the king. Remember, in chess, the most important piece is the king, because once the king is dead, the game is over. So it's important that you protect the king. Now, there are three ways to get out of check. One is to capture the attacking piece. Another one is to block it. And the last one would be to move away. All right, now let's go to the three choices. First, we have bishop takes f5. So you're attacking or you're capturing the attacking piece on f5. Another one is rook d5. It's blocking the piece that is attacking the king. So we call it also interposing. And the last one would be to move away. So you're moving the king on a safe square, and it's not anymore a check. Because you cannot, the king cannot stay in check. The king has to stay away or move away from a check. Because if the king is always in check, that's illegal. That's not a legal move. Okay, that's the rule in chess. The king cannot stay in check. All right. Okay. Of course, the best way here is to capture the rook on f5. When we go back to the values of the piece, the rook is 5 points. If you take it away, now black loses 5 points, but when he has king left on the board, and this is easier for white to go for a checkmate. Okay, so we go on to the next one. From check, we go to the checkmate. You look at the king carefully here on d8. He cannot move to c7 because of this rook. The rook is guarding this line. Okay, the rook is guarding the line in the 7th rank. Okay, the only square that the king can go to is this two squares here, e8 and c8. And with that in mind, white has this important check. Rook check on h8, and it is a checkmate because the king cannot go here, 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 and here, and here. He cannot go there because these two rooks are controlling these two important lines. And when it's a checkmate, the game is over. The meaning of checkmate, when the king has nowhere to go and it's under check, you cannot get out of the three ways. You cannot take the piece that is attacking the king. You cannot block the check, and the king cannot move away. That means the game is over. Right? And this is how you win the game. The important thing, the main objective of the game is checkmate. But also we have what we call stalemate. All right. In this position, by the way, here white played queen g6, which is a mistake. Right. The king is not under check. So the king now has nowhere to go. If you look at the red squares here, g8, g7, and h7, those are the squares that the king can go, but the queen is attacking those three squares. So the king has nowhere to move, no other legal moves. Now in this case, we call it a stalemate. And a stalemate, by the way, is not a win, but it's a draw. Okay? And you got to be careful. The way to win is checkmate, but not stalemate. Again, stalemate means the king has nowhere to go, but it's not in check, and there's no other legal moves. Okay? Now, we go on to the next one. Now, in this case, white played queen g6, but this is not a stalemate. Why? Because black still has one legal move. It could be one square down or another pawn for two squares. Okay? So if there's still a move that is possible, it's not yet a stalemate, even if the king cannot move anywhere. As long as there's a piece on the other side of the board or wherever, it could be a knight, it could be a bishop, it could be a rook. If that piece can move, that is not a stalemate. Okay, and the game could go on. The game could go on until white or the other player checkmates the opponent. All right, and we go on to the next position here. And this is the position. Materially, of course, white is so much better with the bishop and the rook. Now he's going for checkmate, but let's say, for example, he played this rook on g1. And this is a big blunder because this rook is taking away the escape square of the king on g8. This bishop is taking away the escape square of the king on h7. And by the way, the rook has limited the movement of the king on g8 and g7. The pawns are being blocked. Pawn on h4 is blocking the pawn on h5. The pawn on b4 is blocking the pawn on b3. It's being blocked by the pawn on b3. So these pawns on b4 and h5 cannot move. So that means there's no other legal moves. The king also cannot move because the bishop is restricting h7. The rook is restricting g7 and g8. So again, even if the opponent or here in this case, white has more material, but he does not check his opponent, and his opponent has nowhere to go. The king's opponent has nowhere to go, and there's no other legal moves. That is a stalemate, and that is very unfortunate. So you guys have to be careful. You have to know what is a stalemate and what is a checkmate. Okay, it's important to know the difference. Again, the main objective of the game is to checkmate. Although when you are in a disadvantage, you can use this stalemate trick to save a point. It's half a point, by the way. All right. Okay, so we go on to the next one. Okay, we have this position on the board. Speaking of checkmate, here we have two rooks against the king. And how do you checkmate using two rooks against the king? All right. If you look at the position carefully, this rook is cutting off the line here, okay, the fourth rank. So the correct move order here is this rook, okay? So you push the king to the side of the board. You could push it to the last line, okay? So the king has to move back, king to d6. All right, now this rook now is, the other rook now is controlling this line. So you make use of the other rook. We use the ladder, control the line. So you push the king further back. Okay, Now we have again the other rook controlling this line, right? This line. So it's very important. So two more lines left. And here, rook check. Okay, now the king moves back to the last line. But you gotta be careful because it's not yet a checkmate when you play this one because the king can take the rook on g7. So you gotta be careful. So the correct move here is to put the rook protecting g7. The king cannot take this rook because of the protection by the other rook. So the king has to move to e8, and only then you check. And this is a checkmate position. Again, the king has nowhere to go. There's no piece that can capture the attacking piece on g8, and there's no piece that can block the check. The king cannot go to this red squares here because it's controlled by the two rooks, f8 and d8, controlled by the rook on g8. d7, e7, and f7, controlled by the rook on a7. And the game here is over. That's how you win the game. Here, using two rooks. All right? Okay, again, it's important that you know how to checkmate your opponent because if, for example, here you keep checking, let's say you check, and then here you check, let's say, for example, you check, you keep checking, the game will not end if you don't know what to do. You keep checking. Again, there's a rule in chess, 50 moves without pawn moves, and without, when the king still can move for 50, and you keep checking like for 50 moves, and it's going to be, you're going to have a 50 move rule, and it's a draw. And another thing is that, let's say, for example, king moves back here, you move back check, here you keep checking, and we have a threefold repetition of the position. That's also a draw. When the king moved back to d5 3 times, you check on g6 3 times. That's a draw. It's a threefold repetition. So if you don't know how to checkmate, and then you lose half a point. And for you to win, you should know the importance of checkmate. Okay, so we go on to the next one. The next one would be this: how to checkmate using the queen. Okay, the queen is the most powerful piece on the board because the queen can move anywhere. Okay, it can move forward, it can move on the file. Okay, it can move on the rank. All right, and it can also move diagonally. So it's a combination of the rook and the bishop. Okay. When we're checkmating using the queen, we have to put the opponent's king in a cage. Okay. Now in this case, okay, here we have a cage. We try to make the cage smaller. So we move that one. Okay, a smaller cage. The king moves a smaller cage. And also take note of this one, very important one. We have a knight shadow here. It's an imaginary check on the king. It's a knight shadow. Okay, an imaginary knight move here, right? It's just imaginary. Okay, small cage. King goes to g7, small cage. Okay, limited squares for the king to go. King is in the last line, it's on the edge of the board now. Okay, now the king has two more squares left. You make sure you allow, because if you play this one on g6, this is again a stalemate. You gotta be careful. So you give space for the king, for at least one. Give him breathing room. And then the queen cannot checkmate the king alone. So you need the help of the king. So after king h7, king goes to the rescue. Help me, all right? Okay, help. Help. And now there are three ways to checkmate here. One, is on h5. You look at the squares, the black squares, the squares with the red icon over there. King can go to h8 because of the queen. h6 also controlled by the queen. g6 by the queen and the king. g7 by the king, and g8 controlled by the king. So it's game over. Another way to checkmate here is to move the king back to h4. It's the same thing. The queen controls the important line here, this king here, this here, and another one here. Okay, so again, this is a checkmate. And the last way to checkmate here is to move the king closer to your, right, the queen closer to your king here. With the protection of the king on the queen and the control of the queen on these important squares, it is a checkmate. I mean, it's over. You get a win. That's why knowing how to checkmate your opponent is crucial in a chess game. The most important thing, the main objective of the game is to checkmate. Remember how to checkmate. All right, do we go on to the next one? Okay. Before we end our lesson about checkmate, and stalemate, I'll show you one important thing. Okay, let's say for example here white plays e4, black plays e5. Queen moves out, it's attacking the e5 pawn. Okay, here let's say the knight protects the pawn. Bishop develops. And black doesn't mind, he also copies the opponent with bishop c5. But now we have a checkmate on f7 because we have the protection of the bishop in c4. There is no piece that can capture the queen. The king has nowhere to go. He cannot go to f8, cannot go to e7 because of the control of the queen on these two squares. He cannot block the check, cannot capture the queen, and the queen is protected by another bishop on c4, and it's a checkmate. We call it a scholar's mate. Okay, so you have to protect the most important square f7. Okay, this square f7, and for white this square f2. These are two weak points, or the weakest points in the game. And why is it called the weakest point? It's called the weakest point because from the starting position, the only piece, all right, the only piece protecting, the only piece protecting these two squares is the king. So you got to be careful with this one. It's two important squares. It's either you, let's say for example here, you can block it on the first move. So bishop c4, now you're blocking the way of the bishop here. That saves it. Okay, let's say for example, another example would be here knight to c3, opponent for example plays e5, and here white plays a3. And for beginners, when they see capture, they would take, let's say you take. The knight goes in the middle of the board, the bishop moves back. Okay, oh, he didn't take, I have to move back. I put my rook here. And you do not move the king as early in the game. Like, for example, you play king e7 here, the rook captures the pawn. Unfortunately, king is in checkmate because here the knight controls these two squares. The rook controls this line. There's no other piece that can block the check. You cannot capture the attacking piece, which is the rook on e5. And the king cannot move away, and it's a checkmate. So important thing in chess is also to develop your piece. Do not move the king early in the game. All right? Okay, I hope you enjoyed the lesson for today. And as a reminder as well, stay safe, stay at home. Okay, we battle. This is a challenge for us nowadays because of COVID, but we have to fight. And it's nice to play chess every day, every single day. All right. Okay. So that's all for now. The next lesson will be later. Bye.